reset how we got to today. Charlie Kirk was murdered on September 10th. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was taken into custody 2 days later. This is the full list of charges he faces: aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, 2 counts of obstruction of justice, 2 counts of witness tampering, a violent offense committed in the presence of a child. And if convicted, he could face the death penalty. But somehow all of that, well, it puts a smile on his face. Joining me now on today's hearing is Utah defense attorney and former prosecutor Nathan Evershed and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Imran Ansari. Thank you both for being with us here today. Imran, you're here with us in New York. Let's start with the hearing today on allowing cameras in the courtroom. What will the judge be analyzing? What will you think will be his decision?
Well, the judge is going to be analyzing whether allowing cameras in the courtroom will be prejudicial to Tyler Robinson. That's really the only thing that's going to be considered by that judge when making the analysis and weighing that against this presumption of public access to our courts, which is embodied essentially in our Constitution, 6th Amendment, and also the 1st Amendment, where you have the public access with the press interest in covering this case. This is a usually public case. You have the nation really interested in what's going on in that court in so many ways. And the real question for that judge is, if we allow the cameras into the courtroom, we allow the press to sit there, allow the nation and the world to see what's going on during the course of this trial, would that be prejudicial to this defendant? I don't think that's going to be a compelling argument for the defense, because they want those cameras out. Of course, the prosecution also saying that they may not want those cameras in there, but I don't think that they're going to be prevailing on that because of all this pretrial coverage out there, and I don't see the prejudice to Tyler Robinson if they allow those cameras in.
And describe for me very quickly, how does, for example, televising the pretrial hearings prejudice a potential jury against Tyler Robinson?
Well, I think the argument is that if the jury pool there in Utah are accessing some of these pretrial hearings, some of the rulings, seeing some of the evidence that may be excluded at the time of trial, that is the danger of the prejudice to Tyler Robinson. But we've already seen a lot of that, Will. We've already seen those text messages, so I think that they can't unring the bell.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Nathan, I want to bring you in now. You have deep knowledge of the state of Utah. We're talking about a juror pool in Utah. Imran and I were discussing, quite honestly, before we became on air, this case is everywhere. The evidence is everywhere. It's all over social media. For just an example, Nathan, people have seen things like this text exchange purportedly between Tyler Robinson and his roommate that shows the roommate asking why, and then Robinson says, "Why did I do it?" The roommate says, "Yeah, I've had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence." I have to wonder, Nathan, really at this point, if transparency isn't actually what's needed in this case, that a potential jury's already seen all of this.
Well, that's true. And what's going to happen is that it's probably going to be the biggest jury pool in the state of Utah history in order to cure some of that. Because while many of us are paying close attention to it, there are numbers of people that, well, might be aware of it, but don't know all of the evidence of it. And so there's nothing that a large jury pool can't really solve. And so it would just be, it might be well over 1,000 jurors or 2,000 that will be brought in, and then it comes down to 12 of them that would come in. So that would be, but that's something that the judges typically rely upon is, hey, jury selection is going to be intense. It might be well over a week. And eventually we're going to have to get jurors that don't really know much about the case or examine the evidence, because it would be prejudicial to him if the jurors have already examined the evidence, got conclusions, understand these things, and it'd be fairer for him and for the process to have a jury as fair as it could be.
I want to talk a minute about the defense tactics. We'll talk more a moment with both Imran and Nathan about excluding evidence. But let's presume for a moment that the evidence comes in, Nathan. You just described a jury pool of over 1,000. This is now a case that is not unlike Diddy or Luigi Mangione or O.J. Simpson. We're going to be talking about this throughout the hour here, a little bit more on Luigi Mangione. But this case is not simply taking place in a courtroom, Nathan. It's taking place out there in the world, in the minds of the public as they consume a ton of information. If you're the prosecutor, do you feel confident that even with a jury pool of 1,000, you can find 12 who haven't already read something, maybe even an alternative theory about what happened in this case? Do you think you can find 12 impartial people in Utah?
I actually do believe that you could. I mean, there are a lot of people that are just normal, ordinary people going to school, trying to provide for their family, and they're not highly wrapped up into this thing. Obviously, everyone knows the case. Obviously, everyone has heard of it. But in terms of examining evidence, seeing the news reports and whatnot, you can find 12 in 1,000 to get to the most fair and unbiased jury that you can. It's not easy. It's going to be massive. But then the key from there is that all these individuals have family members or friends that have opinions, and it's going to be probably keeping the jury as insulated as possible during a very long trial. And that's going to be another issue.
They go home every night, Nathan, and they scroll their phones. It's impossible, I think, to sequester a jury today. So that takes us back to the other potential defense. So if you are the defense attorney, Imran, your first step is, I want to exclude as much evidence as possible. So you want to get excluded, for example, here's another example of a text exchange between Tyler Robinson and his roommate. How long have you been planning this? A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right now. He's referencing the gun. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Can this evidence successfully be excluded from the trial?
Well, we have to see if there were any constitutional violations here that the defense could hang their hat on to say, we're going to move to preclude this evidence, suppress this evidence, so it doesn't reach the jury. From what I know now, of the investigation, I don't necessarily see those constitutional arguments or having a foundation to bring those in. We may see more information, hear more information from the defense as we go along, and they may have a ground to say, all right, listen, these text messages, they were seized, they were taken from the phone, the electronics, in violation of the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. But right now, if that's coming in, it's pretty powerful evidence, Will, that's going to be reaching that jury. And to go back really quick to what we were talking about, potential jurors who may have not heard about the specifics of this case, you have to be careful about those jurors, too. You've got to think, are they so insulated they don't know what's going on in the world? So when you're picking a fair and impartial jury, even the jurors who may be like, all right, I haven't read this story, I haven't heard that, you got to be careful about those people, too.
All right. Imran, Nathan, thank you both for the discussion.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.